We all long to have some knowledge of life and death. Therefore, some of us look to the world of symbols, because symbols from the unconscious are experienced by people without the glorious gift of clairvoyance. One friend, a brilliant friend in Dublin, told me she'd written a book with a totally different meaning expressed in the chapter headings. Warnings are given to us in code from reading some innocuous list of plane flights. A passing remark, even a joke, an overheard comment can give us a meaningful enlightenment from some other sphere. What's pleasant about this form of spirit communion is that every day people receive this. They don't need to be esotericists. So I feel like sharing an odd fourth-dimensional symbol I received in a final illustration for my first book I wrote ages ago when I was 29, St. Malachy's Court. This was published in England and the USA in 1946, and later in London and USA Random House. I did notice something odd about the chapter headings when it was published. They had a kind of weird meaning, rather weird children's games. But what struck me most was my final picture. My father, an architect and therefore artist, commented that it looked like something by William Blake. Yet I did it in a few minutes. Like a tarot card, it needs to be seen both ways, upright and reverse. I was idly looking at the design in front of what we called our magic mirror, because it was distorted. We hadn't a temple, this is the ordinary home. I now have it at the entrance of our own temple of Isis, a hanging bell rope by it in Shinto tradition. I thought, yes, here he is, super child, which I've drawn, with his legs around the very earth, like the Colossus, a tyrant beside this world, but he's only really a horrible, violent little boy. I heard a spirit guide saying, there are always two ways of looking at things. Turn it upside down. I was utterly terrified. I never ever heard an outside voice before. So I turned it upside down, and I couldn't believe what I saw. It was totally different. The right way up, it was a triangle. The triangle formed of a little boy with his legs astride round the globe, his arms folded and looking remarkably brutish. But now, turning upside, I saw the inverted triangle, but it was not a geometrical one, it looked organic. I saw the chalice, the grail, and I knew what it was, too. It was made of a cow's horn. It was small and humble, with a rim of silver. Over it was a small plate, a little plate, to keep the flies off, I supposed. The emblem of the earth reversed was that of Venus, or the Ag, because the cross made by the boy with his arms was under this sphere. The globe was no longer the earth alone, but it was holding the living embryo of a newly born creature. It's extraordinary. I had blackened in the continents in a special way, and it now looked an embryo. The triangle's reversed. Before, as triangle, it resembled as below, so above. Inverted, it was as above, so below. It's taken me a long time to accept the disagreeable superchild as being necessary. Not disagreeable, but Mars and the Earth. Geb. I take the message to be that male and female are one, but individual. Black and white are as day and night. Both triangles form the six-pointed star, or, when only their points join, they form the diamond of perfection. Realizing this at the beginning, on October the 30th, 1946, I was embarking as a perfectly orthodox member of the Church of England, I believed in Gandhi and that sort of stuff as well, but I wasn't psychic, as an alchemical path, which meant that Venus had to be balanced with Mars, so that our Earth may be restored to the divine feminine. Isis needs our help to join with Osiris to restore love and truth in harmony. That's ages ago. It was this year, just as I was becoming 91. That's the year 2008. I was in the chapel sending healing prayers. We have this little shrine in our temple, and somebody had given me a lovely cast, a cousin of mine called Andrew, of the mourning Athena. We always think of her as pretty fierce, but she is mourning the dead, standing before a tomb, mourning the fallen, all the people who've been killed in wars. And I had over that a rather sinister-looking mirror, a huge square black mirror with an enormous circle in it, much bigger than our magic mirror, huge, really. And I didn't feel this very inspiring for healing, though it was a shrine, you see, for healing. And I got tired of seeing my own face close up, very near. So I veiled the mirror with fine cloth. The cloth was beautiful. It was indigo, printed with a very large beige sun with sort of rays. And there was a maze at the very centre, a dark maze. I thought this was fine for a bit, but then I got a bit bored of just looking at the cloth. The sort of large pale beige sun with rays and dark indigo sort of round it with stars indicated. As a work of art, I respected it. But anyway, I got sick of this. So working with white and green paint, toaster paint, I always will put a face on the sun. So I decided to paint a face expressing compassion. However, it didn't turn out like that one little bit. The maze became a snout of a pig, and the eyes were pig's eyes. And I like pigs very much. I did think of a goddess, Porcina, that she could represent, but somehow it didn't quite fit in with my healing prayers of the rather dignified Athena, so I altered it a bit. And to my amazement, it became a lion, because the sun had its rays, and whatever I'd done to it, it had changed from being a pig, a perfectly respectable vegetarian pig, to a carnivorous lion. Well, they aren't exactly compassionate. However, I decided then that I'd better get it a bit human. So I worked on it, round giving it a mouth, and I did dare touch the maze a bit, giving it nostrils. Then I was faced with Neanderthal man or woman. They may be better than lions in many ways, but they're not very compassionate. Finally, I had the courage. I got some white paint, and I drew right through the maze to make a proper nose, and I raised the eyes. And now I faced a beautiful face. I thought, oh, goody, this is Athena. Now, this is really better. And I went upstairs and had allowances, came down. But then I noticed the rays of sun around. It was a Gorgon, Medusa, indubitably, and splendid. But I didn't think she did compassion exactly. So I didn't know quite what to do. But after a bit, I came and looked at it, and then I got a shock. She had a beard. You see, somebody had drawn in beautiful little lines all round the sun, and this figure had a beard. And I looked, and I saw that it was shrouding Osiris veiled. Now, I've always thought it pretty depressing. Isis's husband had such a raw deal. First of all, he gets murdered, then he gets cut up, and finally he's only restored to produce a son. But what about poor Osiris? He ended up as a mummy, judging in hell, not in hell, down below, Amenti, separating good from evil. But however, there he was. Then I had my experience of falling into the well, by mistake. And I got out, and I suddenly felt annoyed with Osiris. I felt he had all these misfortunes and trials and ordeals, and I thought this didn't do. So I looked at him reproachfully, and I thought, well, I'm going to go back to my own face. I've had this, initiations and what have you. So I lifted up the cloak, and I couldn't believe my eyes. The white paint had got through onto the mirror. An angelic-looking, beautiful face was there. And I thought, this is the risen Osiris. He's no longer a mummy. And I was very, very happy. So those are emblems, but they are, I know, subjective to each person.